I'm Isiah Neves. I'm a youth research assistant with Minds of London Middlesex, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a research project I'm leading titled Queer in the Classroom. Queer in the Classroom is an educational resource developed for teachers, guiding them on supporting the mental health of their LGBTQ students. The goal of the tool is to synthesize existing research on practice and pedagogy into one centralized asset for them to use. It puts particular emphasis on cultivating environments that stop framing queerness as intrinsically tied to suffering and instead work towards celebrating queerness, seeking to look beyond prevention of victimization and towards positive psychological supports for queer youth. The basis of the resource is informed by two pedagogical approaches: minority stress theory and critical queer pedagogy. Minority stress theory is a sociological theory that understands marginalized experiences as chronically stressful. This means that being a minority is going to contribute to levels of stress and hence lead to disproportionate representation of health issues, particularly mental health struggles. A key concept of minority stress theory is differentiation between proximal and distal stressors. So while distal or external stressors like bullying and harassment are what we typically think of when the topic of queer students arises, the proximal or internal stressors are equally important. That constant sense of unsafety and the internalized otherness that comes with being queer in a heteronormative space can be incredibly detrimental. With that in mind, the perspective of critical queer pedagogy makes it clear that schools have to move beyond merely abating the harm of direct discrimination and towards changing the school environment to actively rejoice in the beauty of queer diversity. In essence, it critiques compulsory cis-heterosexuality within education as damaging to LGBTQ students and demands a change to the cis-heteronormative structures inside of schooling. The first phase of our research was conducting a scoping review, with the research question of what classroom-level, teacher-focused pedagogical methods and interventions can be used to support the mental well-being of queer-identified youth in primary and secondary education. The scoping review maps the landscape of existing research and history of supporting LGBTQ students, as well as highlighting some key gaps in literature. The discoveries made informed the basis of our tool, and from the research we were able to isolate three primary models of practice commonly seen in attempting to support LGBTQ youth in schools. First, we have reactive practice. This model provides adjustment only when demanded by the presence of a queer student or queer space, and it frames heteronormativity as inherently correct and right, with the queer child as a necessary evil to be accommodated due to their personal failure of inability to thrive under it. We see this commonly in approaches to handling queerphobic bullying that are based off of lessening harm rather than preventing it, and it often positions the victim as the root of the issue. Next, we have proactive practice. This model seeks to establish a separate space for queer individuals alongside the existing framework of school. It frames the queer child as supplementary to the educational institution, undoubtedly welcome, but undoubtedly divided from the heterosexual norm perpetrated in all places but the strictly established queer ones. We see this readily in educational practices such as gay-straight alliances, anti-homophobia days, and symbolic inclusivity like rainbow flags, which exist without any form of genuine solidarity. And finally, we have inclusive practice, which includes queerness as a fundamental assumption of beautiful school diversity. It frames the queer child as instrumental to the broader tapestry that is the classroom, indivisible from a collective sense of community. This can be seen in teachers who have reconstructed their form of education to include the queer child and queer experience not only when demanded or as a separate aspect of schooling, but as an integral piece of a healthy learning environment, to really make a place where children, queer or not, can explore and interact with identity free from the constraints of a correct answer which heteronormativity would demand. Our tool emphasizes steps moving towards a truly inclusive practice, where LGBTQ students can be fully integrated into the classrooms they occupy and fully interact with every facet of education. The second phase of our interview is conducting qualitative interviews, so we'll be doing 8 interviews with elementary students, 8 with secondary students, 8 with parents, and 8 with teachers. We will be using these interviews to farther inform our resource and ensure everything present is relevant to our target demographic in Ontario. In conclusion, the final resource will incorporate the knowledge discovered through both of these research projects to develop a comprehensive asset for educators in need of guidance in their efforts towards building a truly inclusive classroom. It will assist teachers in creating classrooms where queer youth can feel like there is a place for them in their school and a future for them in a community that celebrates them exactly as they are. Together, we can build a foundation for a new generation of LGBTQ youth that will allow them to not prosper despite their queerness, but prosper in their queerness, providing them with the opportunity to not just survive, but fully, magnificently thrive. Thank you for listening.